Think about the moments when everything inside of you is screaming to quit, when the excuses feel louder than the goals, when the bed feels warmer than the gym, when the plate of junk food feels more inviting than the clean meal sitting in the fridge. That's the crossroads where champions are made, and it's never motivation that saves them, it's discipline. Motivation is the spark, but discipline is the engine that keeps running when the spark has burned out. If you've ever looked at someone like Khabib Nurmagomedov and wondered how he became one of the most dominant forces the fight game has ever seen, you might think it's because he was more motivated than everyone else. But that's the lie we tell ourselves. The truth is, his secret weapon wasn't motivation at all. It was relentless, non-negotiable discipline. And that's the piece most people ignore, the piece that separates the dreamers from the doers. Khabib grew up in Dagestan, a place where comfort was scarce, where the terrain itself demanded toughness, and where young boys were taught early that life wouldn't hand them anything. The mountains became his training ground, the rivers became his cold therapy, and the grueling hours in the gym became his daily reality. There are stories of him training in tiny rooms with cracked mats, wrestling for hours with his teammates until the sweat turned the floors slick. No fancy equipment, no luxury facilities, just pure hard work. Imagine that for a second. There was no Instagram to post his grind, no sports networks hyping up a young Dagestani prodigy, just a boy with a dream and a father who instilled in him a level of discipline so unshakable that it would one day take him to the top of the world. Khabib Nurmagomedov, Khabib's father, wasn't just a coach. He was a general raising a warrior. He didn't care about whether Khabib was motivated. He cared about whether Khabib was consistent, whether he lived by his word, whether he respected the process. That's the foundation. Discipline is built on not feelings, but principles. Now, let's fast forward. Years later, Khabib steps into the UFC. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't the loudmouth promoting himself on microphones. He didn't chase hype. What he chased was dominance, and he chased it with the same discipline he learned as a child. He fought like a man who had already won before the cage door locked. Why? Because the battle wasn't happening in that 15-minute window under the bright lights. The battle was already decided in the thousands of hours of drilling, grappling, grinding, and suffering that came before. Fighters who relied on motivation to carry them through camp showed up ready to fight when the cameras were rolling. Khabib showed up ready to dominate because he had been living the fight every single day, regardless of whether he felt like it. Here's the part most people miss. Motivation is emotional, and emotions are unstable. They change with the weather, with your mood, with your circumstances. One bad day at work, one argument with someone close to you, one sleepless night, and boom, your motivation is gone. And if your entire system is built on motivation, you collapse with it. Discipline, on the other hand, is unemotional. It doesn't care if you're tired, if you're angry, if you're uninspired. Discipline is like a soldier that follows orders without question. The order is simple: show up and do the work. Khabib lived by that order, and it made him untouchable. Let's look at his fight against Conor McGregor. The hype leading up to that fight was unlike anything the UFC had ever seen. Conor brought all the trash talk, the mind games, the spectacle. People thought that kind of psychological warfare might rattle Khabib, but it didn't. Why? Because Khabib's foundation wasn't built on motivation. He didn't need to be hyped up to fight. He didn't need the back and forth banter to feel ready. He had already put in the work. His discipline made him immune to the circus. When the cage closed, he executed with surgical precision, dragged Conor into deep water, and drowned him with the pressure of years and years of relentless, disciplined preparation. That's what discipline gives you. Calm in the storm, composure in the chaos, an unshakable belief that you've done more than anyone else could possibly do. The same truth showed in his fight against Dustin Poirier. Dustin was on fire at the time, motivated, hungry, with knockout power and submissions ready. But motivation couldn't save him once Khabib's pace kicked in. That suffocating style wasn't about talent alone, it was about discipline. Khabib trained himself to push forward like a machine, to keep the pressure constant, to never let the other man breathe. And it wasn't just physical, it was mental warfare. Opponents broke not just because Khabib was stronger, but because they realized he wasn't going to stop. Motivation fuels a sprint. Discipline fuels a marathon. And in the octagon, in life, in business, in any pursuit worth having, the marathon always wins. Think about the weight cuts too. If you've never cut weight, you don't understand the torture. Your body screams for food, your mind begs for comfort, every cell in your body wants to quit. Motivation won't carry you through that. Discipline will. Khabib cut weight multiple times in his career under brutal circumstances, and though he admitted it was painful, he never used that pain as an excuse. He stayed the course. That's a man living by discipline. And here's the kicker. That kind of discipline isn't just about fighting, it's about life. It's about saying no when everything inside of you wants to say yes. It's about controlling your impulses instead of being controlled by them. It's about living by a higher standard, even when no one is watching. So what does that mean for you, the person watching this right now, trying to figure out how to break through in your own life? It means stop waiting for motivation. Stop asking yourself how to stay inspired, because you won't. You're human. You'll wake up some days ready to attack, and you'll wake up other days wanting to hide under the covers. That's normal. Khabib had those days too. The difference is he didn't negotiate with them. He had already decided who he was and what he was about. Discipline isn't about how you feel, it's about what you've decided. And once you decide, feelings become irrelevant. The beauty of discipline is that it builds momentum. At first, it's hard. At first, you'll resist it. At first, every workout, every clean meal, every late night of study, every early morning wake up feels like a war. But eventually, discipline becomes identity. It becomes who you are. Khabib didn't think, do I feel like training? He thought, I am a fighter, and fighters train. That's the shift you need. Stop identifying as someone who's trying to get discipline. Start identifying as someone who already is. Once your identity lines up with your actions, discipline becomes automatic. That's why Khabib was able to retire undefeated. He wasn't forcing himself every day, he was simply being himself. And here's the thing most people never realize. Discipline actually creates freedom. From the outside, people see it as strict, limiting, even harsh. But in reality, discipline frees you from regret, from inconsistency, from wasted time. Khabib's discipline freed him from the traps that destroy so many athletes. Alcohol, drugs, bad decisions, lack of focus. His discipline freed him to build wealth, respect, a legacy, and a future for his family. His discipline freed him to walk away from the sport at the top with nothing left to prove. That's real freedom, and it only comes through discipline. Now imagine applying that in your own life. Imagine showing up every day to your craft, your training, your goals, no matter how you feel. Imagine cutting out distractions with the same ruthlessness Khabib used in the cage. Imagine living by standards that are higher than the people around you. At first, people might not understand. They might call you obsessed, too intense, even boring. But down the line, when results show up, when success compounds, when your legacy starts to form, they'll see what discipline was building the entire time.